Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build. So, after 4.5+ years of playing this game, I've discovered a pre-existing structure that I had no idea was here and will make a great camp spot. So, let's have a look at this. So yeah, we're down in the ash heap at the moment, and I was having to wander around. I thought there might be somewhere down here that would be quite cool to build, and somewhere that I hadn't been before, perhaps, if I was lucky. And I ended up stumbling across this little area here where there are 2 or 3 potentially interesting spots to build, really right next to each other. So I've picked this existing trailer that's behind us, and I'm really quite pleased with this little spot. So this is where we are on the map, down here in the bottom of the ash heap. Called it a dried lake because there is a dried lake right next to us. So here's a couple of locations that are just nearby. We're basically smack in between those 2 spots. There's Beckley down here. You sort of see this squiggly road coming down here. If you head down that, and then it's just off to the side here. You sort of head around the corner, you find this trailer just sort of tucked out of sight, which is quite cool. And there it is. Very, very nice. Well, actually beaten up to all heck, but still. That's what passes for nice in Fallout. So I'm going to reinforce this back area, seeing as we've got it. There's one drawback to this location. You do get enemy spawns in a couple of spots here. This whole area is often populated with bloatflies or mole rats, so that is probably the biggest drawback to this area. But we're just going to close this corner off. A couple of fences. Here we go. Should be about right. Bit hard to see, but turn my light on, you better see okay. Should keep the worst of the bad guys out, and we'll move around to the front. So this front wall is the major part of the build. After that, it's decoration. And there's a few bits and pieces to show off here. So I'm using the red brick stucco wall. This comes from the Atomic Shop. It's not been around for a while, so it'll probably reappear eventually, but it's quite cool. A little out of place here, so we'll have to junkie it up a bit, just to go with the beaten up trailer, but still, I haven't used it in a while, so I thought it'd be fun. The gate has snapped a little high, though, so that left-hand piece has given me a guide for where I want to put the gate, but it's a bit too high up, so we'll just lower it down carefully. Jump it around a little bit, unfortunately, so I have to play it a bit carefully. There we go, looks about right. And for some weird reason, I can't put the full-size wall back in, so I use 2 half-size ones. Not a problem, as I'm going to be pulling bits out later anyway, but doesn't make a whole lot of sense given what we're about to see, that this wouldn't go back in. But anyway, it is what it is. So, the next bit we need to do is extend this wall out and around, just to make sure we've got the sort of the line in place, and then we'll fine-tune in a moment. And we're going to need to fine-tune, because right now we've got floating patches of wall, and it's not actually going to meet up at the other end of the trailer here. Sort of see. It's not quite right there. Thought I needed a bit more length on this side. Turns out I did not. So weirdly, this is quite happy to snap all the way up to the plaster into the ground, which it didn't want to go through a tiny little bit of uneven ground on the other side. It's very strange. Not very helpful, that wall. You can just hop over it, but we've got adjustments to make yet anyway, as that is clearly not on the correct line. So we'll try and adjust some of this wonkiness here. Just tweak the position a little bit. Put some of these walls back in. And when you're doing this next section, you need to make sure that this snaps onto the gate, not to the wall beside it, which is what happened here. So we'll have to change that, otherwise we'll basically be rebuilding exactly the same wall, which would be a tiny bit counterproductive. Let's get that out of the way. There we go, that's now snapped onto the gate rather than to the other wall. So we're going to sort of extend this back. Still have to deal with that floating in a minute. Don't need that. And we're going to move things over a bit because we went too far. Run this back, and that looks about right, just not quite far enough. So we'll make the same adjustment again, run back around, and we now have a connection. So there we go. I'll save some time repeating myself, and now we just need to, well, break this wall, really. So I'm going to pull some sections out to make it, well, full of holes, and then we'll replace it with junk walls so that it kind of matches the trailer a little bit more. So I pulled one out there. Turns out I don't actually want that half-size one there, so we'll just put a post on the end. I do like the way these posts kind of finish off the walls, which is counterproductive to a junk wall, I realise, but at the same time, it, I don't know, it just kind of works. I don't make the rules, I don't know. So, this bit is going to be awkward, so first thing I'm going to do is pull this corner piece out and replace it with a half-size one. Breaks the connection, makes things a bit easier. We're going to have this entire section out, and this entire section out here. I did think about putting something else in that gap, but in the end we'll just use an encampment fence in a minute. So, whip this section out and put a post on the corner, which is a good choice because this will end up being a perfect fit for something in just a moment. And now we'll deal with these two floating walls, which is not very helpful as they are. They don't want to sink down for some reason in quite the way I need them to. It gets closer there, but it's still not quite right, so we have to have a bit of a play around with this. So we'll grab a half-size one. Let's see, that's not working. And now, I'll separate it. This half-size one just drops straight into place, which is what I was hoping for. Because now I can move that left one in and put a post on the end. And it just sits nicely on the ground, leaving us with some gaps to plug, which is what I wanted. So, the encampment fence, that's going to go in this little gap here. Doesn't quite fit, but having it recessed and sort of improvised kind of vibe up against the edge of the wall there works for me. So, I do think about doubling it up here, but yeah, I'm kind of happy with it as is. So we're going to grab a conventional junk wall and put that in here. Turns out this particular one is not quite big enough, but this one fits perfectly. So let's nudge that back. Look at that. Couldn't ask for a better fit. Perfect. So we'll come back to this really awkward bit in a second and deal with this other awkward bit. I'm going to use this big junk fence with the tyres on because it fits quite nicely, or almost fits quite nicely, but collision being what it is, it's a little bit awkward. A little bit of playing around is needed to get that to just drop back into the gap a tiny bit more. So we're going to grab the flamethrower and destroy the gate here. There we go. Now we can just carefully edge that back until it sits nicely in the gap and flush with the wall. There we go. I like that. Looks good. Let's repair that gate. Job's a good one. Grab some chain link, wherever that is. There it is. And we'll plug this little gap up here with it, because it's just the right size. Let's go around the other side, then we can see a bit more clearly. There we go. I'll add some extra bits in a minute to thicken this up, or during the decoration rather, and make that a little bit more interesting. I should say, by the way, if you're wanting to sort of see what you're doing a bit more clearly, like I'm doing here, then the Pip-Boy light does help, especially if you change the Pip-Boy colour in your settings menu to be all white. It just puts out so much more light, and it's so much clearer and more useful when you're building and stuff like that. So, something to consider if you haven't. There's some good settings in there, actually, that have been added recently, so I'd have a rummage around if you haven't. A couple of chain link fences, though, have plugged this gap quite nicely. That half one actually snapped to the end of the wall, which was handy. I didn't realise I'd done that at the time, but turns out it worked quite nicely. But we do have a bit of a fold in the ground here that we need to kind of deal with a bit, sort of, kind of. So I'm going to put that picket fence in, which I've been quite liking lately, actually. And we'll nudge this gas station sign up against the outside, just to kind of draw the eye away from some of the flaws with this big fold in the ground. There's not a great deal I can do about plugging it up. There might be some options, maybe, possibly, but they all have their drawbacks as well, so I'm quite happy with that result anyway. Once we add a few extra bits, you won't really be able to tell. So here, last thing I'm going to do on the walls before we move on is try and build basically a guard post. I had planned to use the perimeter railing with the stairs attached, but it won't sink low enough, so I went with a foundation, which fortunately fits quite nicely. We can kind of see over the top there, which is good, but I want to be a little bit higher up. Make sure I've got a bit of a better angle. That should do the job. Now I need some stairs on the back here. This particular set are a little bit too short, so we're going to use the haunted house set. Those will clip all the way to the ground. But our junky wall here is now getting in the way. So, back to the flamethrower. Destroy all this lot. Grab it, point it at the corner here, and now we can get the last 3 bits there. Pull it out of the way, and now the staircase should go back in. Nice. Wonderful. So let's get that all repaired. And we're good. So, moving on, we're just going to sort of dress this foundation up a little bit. I'm going to put some perimeter wall railings on there, just to kind of enclose it. I'm not happy with that junk fence, so I'll throw that away and replace it with an encampment fence, which is a bit shorter and doesn't kind of hide the railing at the top there. So we can just sort of push this up, texture it up a little bit, make the whole thing a bit more interesting that way. And there we go. A little bit of adjustment needed. Make sure you don't grab the foundation by accident. It's actually not a major problem because it won't go anywhere, but it's not very helpful either, so FYI. There we go, looks good. So, last couple of bits and pieces before we move on to decorating and the tour. This place needs some repairs. So, these plywood responder signs are really good for doing this sort of thing with. Paintings are good as well, incidentally, but for some reason, it just will not go in that gap, and I don't quite know why. Because around outside, grab these window boards, haunted house window boards, from the same set as the chain link fences and stuff. Keep an eye out for them around Halloween, because they're well worth picking up on the atomic shop. And these are pretty good, but they don't look that great here. Turns out it doesn't matter, because I'm going to get rid of them in a second. But what they did allow me to do, and I have no real idea why, guess the game just had a better idea where the wall was, it let me put the plywood in now. So, a little bit of careful positioning, and it's fine. Maybe I just wasn't patient enough the first time. Maybe the boards gave the game a bit of a better idea of what I was working with. But the plywood is not attached to those window boards, as we'll see when I take them out in a moment. But still, problem solved, and I'm not going to complain. I'll just wonder at the mystery and move on rapidly before the game figures out it's let me do something I'm not supposed to. Pier sign up there to block that last little gap up. And we're looking good. Well, we're looking scrappy as all heck, but same thing. So we'll plug this gap up here. I think you get the general idea. We're going to be doing this in a few other spots around this trailer. I'm going to use the chain link gate as a front door and also a back door, but I'll do that off camera, as I can't unfortunately get any other door in here with any particular ease. That should do the job. And on that note, I think I will head off, decorate this thing, and see you all in the tour in just a moment. And here we go. Much decoration later. So what I remember, I've still got about a third of the budget left on this. So if I did want to add some extra bits and pieces and change stuff around, which I might maybe possibly do at some point, I actually can do that. And I quite like the look of this place. This pre-existing trailer that we've managed to junk up and reinforce a bit and add some extra areas outside. It's pretty cool. A whole bunch of extra walls and textures and fences and stuff on the outside of these brick walls as well, just to make them appear more junky and less like solid brick, because that just doesn't make a lot of sense. The ground's a bit weird around here, so it's a bit awkward to kind of traverse, but I think this looks alright. Nice and textured and interesting. I'll just hop over this little gap here. There we are. Let's see, I've got a whole bunch of extra bits and pieces on the outside just to, yeah, texture it up, make the wall a bit thicker and more substantial. And, yeah, quite happy with that. I've shoved my camp unit over there because, as I said earlier, you do get enemies spawning here sometimes, and sometimes you do get camp attacks this way. They spawn on the camp unit outside of my walls. Yeah, a whole load of extra bits and pieces on the outside there to dress it up. Plug the gap underneath the trailer so that nothing can crawl under, or not so easily anyway. Added a little bit more around the back here, just to thicken that fence up as well. Set one barricade. Looks okay. The lighting, it really looks like it's fine. The sort of misty lighting around here is quite hard to see. While we're at the back here, let's have a quick run around this side, because you can see the rest of this location here, and I'm definitely going to be building here again and using other bits of this spot. We've got the car park here that you can build on. This definitely makes for a nice flat area that I think I can do something cool with in future. And we've got this little boathouse here. You normally get enemies spawning in here. I've had mole rats and bloatflies spawning inside this place. You can see the remains of some bloatflies there. But I might maybe possibly try and do something with this at some point as well. And we've got this whole dried lake bed here as well, which you can just about see through the bright haze. But this whole area is interesting, and I didn't know it was here, so I might have to work with that. You can just about see on the hill up there, the back of Beckley. Just about in front of the tree line, and yeah, give you some idea of where we are. I do think some potential here for some cool builds. I might have to come back to this spot. Glad I found it. And there's a big open area just sort of behind me and to the right as well, but it's not quite so flat there, so or is interesting. Yeah, heading around the side, we'll move in through the gate. I think I got a bit carried away putting punchy boards there. I also put a line of punchy boards around the top of the wall, actually. Best to do that last, I should say, if you want to do that, because it does sometimes stop you putting stuff on the wall, which was slightly annoying. But it's kind of fun. It means that anything leaning over is going to get injured if it tries to lean over the side, particularly on the far side there. And it also makes it just a bit more interesting and scrappy, which is cool. Speaking of, definitely scrappy this place up. Put a few brambles in there, because I couldn't really put much behind those chairs, but it'd make it a bit more interesting. My usual red Stagfield dressing station, so I've got some grub available. Tucked in that gap quite nicely. You can see I've got my chemistry station up on the guard post here, because I really needed, well, I needed this somewhere to put it, which was a bit of a struggle. There's not a lot of room for workbenches here, because the ground's not particularly flat. You can see we've got a decent view out here, and I can defend my camp if I need to. That Collectron goes for quite the wander from that location. He walks quite a long way away. I didn't realise quite how far he goes. There we go, loads of bits of extra decoration on the walls there, just to make it a bit more interesting. You can see everything kind of meets the ground now, and the stairs are hiding the gap there, so it all looks good. Put a couple of foundations in here so that I could get these workbenches in. With the Nuka-Cola brewing stations, it's actually a bit smaller, which is helpful. To get these foundations in, I basically put the 2 foundations in here and then the third one in, pulled these 2 out and lowered that third one down so that I could actually get everything nice and low and snug in, because otherwise it wouldn't drop quite so low to the ground. But it looks good. Quite happy with how that's come out. Got to put a stash box in, so I had to go and do that after the fact, but it's all good. Here is my little vendor area. It's a little bit out of sight, but it's bright red, so if you're looking, you'll find it. And our bathroom facilities. You may notice that the outhouse there is sunk into the ground, and in a moment of forgetting to look it up, I've forgotten who told me how to do this, but turns out you can use the merge glitch in combination with a rug to sink that down into the ground a lot more like this, which is actually a major improvement. So we had a little chatter in the comments the other day on my last video about how to do this, and you just about see the rug poking out at the back of the outhouse there. If you get it in the right place behind it, you can really conceal the rug as well, which is what I was hoping I'd be able to do. I did the same principle for the shower. It hasn't worked quite as well, but if you're not really looking, you won't really see it. So I'm quite happy with that. It's quite cool. So high five to that person who I do apologise for not looking your name up before I sat down to record this. But you are not forgotten. Very pleased about that. Let's have a look inside. So this place is a mixture of a few things that were already here and a whole load of extra decoration, as well as some reinforcement to the structure. I had to blueprint a lot of things, particularly anything sort of above about knee height, in order to place it on the floor, because they just wanted to jump up on the roof, as they are prone to do, and it was very, very annoying. But a little bit of patience. Things went on surfaces okay, it's just not on the floor. It was a bit awkward. But nonetheless, this bed was already here, so that's one thing I didn't have to worry about. Managed to squeeze in a whole bunch of decoration. Place looking, if not homely, sort of post-apocalyptic sheltery anyway. Keeps most of the weather off. I had to double up a few of the things I put on the wall, the decoration items, like those posters in the back there, which is why we've got half and half. For some reason, they have sort of clipped into each other instead of being one on top of the other, which is not the plan. On the other hand, it looks kind of like it's a poster for a double feature, so I can kind of live with that. It actually is a very clean kind of clip, so I don't mind it too much. That big pile of rusted metal down there has obviously fallen off the roof, and unfortunately I can't get rid of it, so that's a bit annoying. It's kind of in the way, and I would like to have been able to delete it, but it is what it is. So I guess maybe the character who is living here is going to use it to build something or something for some kind of weird headcanon. But it's not a major problem. It does kind of take the edge off how nicely I could have decorated this place, though. Yeah, we've got a whole load of posters on the wall, a load of bits and pieces that I've added onto the table. Table was already there, as was that sofa. And sort of filled it up, decorated a few bits, squeezed some extra boards in to kind of plug up gaps and put some posters and paintings up and stuff to do the same job. Couple of curtains in here just to make a little bit of privacy in this toilet. I wouldn't recommend using it, but yeah, I kind of didn't need the outhouse in hindsight with this bathroom in here, but nonetheless, I wanted to use the technique anyway, so I don't mind too much. Hey, it doesn't hurt to have a spare bathroom, does it? Yeah, quite like the look of this. Not done too much in here apart from squeezing poster in and boarding things up and getting those curtains in, but it looks alright. I should say, by the way, you do often get bloatflies and occasionally mole rats spawning actually inside the trailer. It's a random encounter point, which is a bit annoying. On the other hand, you also get grams spawning in there sometimes, so that's a plus. So out back here, there is not a lot of room. It was a bit difficult to kind of do anything with this, but I managed to make it a really kind of trashy, junky area that I managed to squeeze my power armor station in. Got that foundation just tucked in the corner, went in nice and easily, and then dressed it up a little bit, where the power armor station doesn't look like it's floating. Tuck my symptomatic in the corner and added some extra junk in as well. Was my shelter entrance in the back corner there. And got to use the merge glitch on the shelves as well, just to kind of dress those up a little bit in that back corner next to the power armor station as well. Looks pretty cool, I think. So yeah, quite happy with the result. I believe this rug, by the way, is from one of the scoreboards, possibly the current one. It's fairly new, I remember that much. I think it's the current scoreboard. But yeah, all in all, I'm rather pleased with how this came out. Nice to use a pre-existing structure and put a bit of a spin on it, which is quite cool. I like the stairs on the front of this as well. Very, very cool. Yeah, not too bad. And as I say, I had no idea this place was even here. Really cool. Definitely going to be revisiting this general area before too long. So I hope you folks like this one. Please do consider dropping subs and likes. I very, very much appreciate. Down below, as always, you'll find social media links, merch store, channel memberships as well. If you'd like to support the channel in that way, I hugely appreciate it. It really helps out. So massive thank you to everyone who's done that. And if you get a chance to join us for live streams as well, we are, of course, playing Fallout 76, and we're about to start Wolfenstein New Order in the run-up to Starfield on the 1st of September as well. So cannot wait to get stuck into that. But for now, I will say a very big thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.